Senator Josh Hawley claims the left hates men and masculinity, and then goes on to indirectly trash men.
I feel like men are under constant attack by the left, the Democrat Party, and the media. Am I wrong about that?
No, you're not wrong. I think the ideology of the left now, Mark, and for decades now, has been that there's something inherently wrong with masculinity. And so they want to educate our kids out of it. Listen, I got two little boys at home. They're 10 and 8 now, and I write about them in the book. And you look at what our kids are taught in schools. I mean, from the time they go to preschool, for heaven's sake, they're taught that, if they're a boy, if they want to be aggressive, if they want to talk about guns, no, that's bad. They need to be medicated. They need to be quieted down. When they get a little older, they're taught that manhood is inherently dangerous, that it contributes to climate change, that they need to renounce their masculinity. And you see this ideology, it suffuses, permeates our media, our culture, all driven by the left. And then we wonder, why is it that more and more men are not pursuing education, more and more men are not pursuing work? We've got to tell the truth, which is that we need strong men in this country. We need them to go out there and work. We need them to start a family. We need them to provide. And if you want to change America for the better, get men to be strong again, to take on their responsibilities, and to be leaders.
So wait. So your argument is, men, they need to be strong, you see. And the left hates men. And now I'm going to tell you about how lazy men are, and how unmanly they are, and how they're terrible and not providers, and how they're doing all these things wrong. And apparently how they're so mentally weak that the left can indoctrinate them. And wait, you're claiming to be a speaker for men? No, okay. So let's go through this bit by bit, all right? So his premise is, the left thinks something is inherently wrong with masculinity. No, we don't. No, masculinity is totally fine, totally based. Nothing wrong with men. Now, we do have a problem with what Josh Hawley is selling. That ain't masculinity, it's insecurity. That's why the label toxic gets applied to that type of masculinity, because it isn't masculinity. It's insecurity. It's weakness. Masculinity is not aggressiveness, okay? Oh, see, if you're a boy and you want to be aggressive and you want to talk about guns, that's bad. Wait, there's nothing masculine about being aggressive. What do you mean by aggressive? What you want kids to bully other people? Is that it? That's not manly at all. It's also not tied to guns either. Masculinity is not tied to having weapons. In fact, if anything, if you're outside the house and you're strapping yourself with an AR-15 to go to Walmart because you think you got to protect yourself from the hordes of thugs and criminals, well, that's not strong. That's actually incredibly weak. That projects weakness. Why is this guy armed to the gills? If you're, while he's in like the bakery aisle, like, what's wrong with you? What do you think's gonna happen? No, it shows that either you're scared of everything, or there's the other thing, which is, again, not very strong, not very masculine. You're a bully. You're a bully who uses your weapons to get respect from people that you wouldn't normally get. And by respect, I don't actually mean respect. I mean fear. You want people to fear you because they don't actually respect you. Again, either way, it does not seem very manly at all. Look, nobody's being taught to renounce masculinity. It's actually quite the opposite. We're really teaching people to embrace what it means to be an emotionally balanced man. Being open. Being able to be who you are, right? Being able to feel emotions if you have to. When you have to. And to have appropriate responses to things. But there's a stereotype that is held by people who are traditional, old school, whatever, is that, men don't actually show any emotions. Yeah, we have to be completely stoic and not show anything. Men don't cry. You sack up. Man up. The only emotion that you're allowed to show is anger and horny. No. Look, it's also, by the way, it's okay to be angry. Nobody's saying that it's not okay to be angry, but You have to have a positive outlet for that. And it's not punching holes in your wall or yelling at your wife and kids. No, there are good positive outlets for anger. Go and exercise, do a hobby. You know, by the way, you can go out and shoot guns. There's nothing wrong with target shooting. It's fun. Nothing wrong with that. And oh my God, it involves guns. Now, he also said, we wonder why is it that more and more men are not pursuing education. Oh, see, there's men, they're not going to college, you see. Why? Why is that? It's because you keep calling it woke.
The wokers.
I mean, you're calling education woke, and then you're saying that it victimizes men. Why? By learning about the contributions of women that are real? Come on. And let's be honest. I know Josh Hawley, he's not talking about all men in general. He's talking about white men. Right-wing white men. That's it. Now, the point about work, by the way, is related to education. Okay. You have, of course, men that are not able to go to school, not able to get an education because we have a system where you can't afford an education. And by the way, even with an education, it can be very difficult to actually get those higher paying jobs. And then you're loaded with student loan debt. So you haven't really gotten anything. And so that overall point is the intersection between, of course, how, young men in society have been fucked over by capitalism. In both education, not being able to afford a good education or being stuck with a mountain of debt, and also not having those jobs that actually pay a living wage. The economic macro forces in this country are not good for average workers, especially young men. Look, corporations have shipped jobs overseas to exploit low-wage labor. In some of these more traditionally what were considered masculine trades, going overseas. Again, you also combine that with some of those stereotypes of, oh man, you're supposed to be the sole provider. Yes, that hasn't been true since like the 50s, when jobs paid relative to inflation enough for a person on one income to buy a house, have a retirement, and all the stuff that people my age will never get to see. Why? Because wages haven't kept up with productivity, haven't kept up with the cost of living. Now in these days, you have to have at least 2 incomes to survive. And even then, sometimes you still can't. Now, look, what are people like Josh Hawley doing about this? He sets out all the problems, right? Oh, look at all these problems with men not being men, and it's all the left, and it's all the woke indoctrination and the feminisms. Okay, what are you going to do? What is Josh Hawley going to do to help the economic conditions that are, stopping men from getting good jobs, stopping men from being able to be providers in his case? Nothing. They're not helping families by raising wages. They're not expanding healthcare. They're not expanding mental healthcare. And another part of that segment, he talks about the high rate of suicides when it comes to young men. And you also have, of course, other issues, diseases of despair, higher addiction rates, things like that. Expanding healthcare, expanding mental healthcare, but generally making it so that, workers are not crushed by the system, that it can actually make a living wage. Josh Hawley not doing any of that. In fact, Josh Hawley is against all of those good things. They're not doing anything to help men in this country. They're instead feeding men who are understandably economically insecure. They're feeding them full of bullshit, weird talking points about how it's not actually capitalism, it's not actually economics that are the problem. No, it's woke. It's the wokers.
The wokers.
That's the whole problem. It's the woke and the feminisms and probably black people as well. That's what's ruining life. That's what's making it bad. Also, probably the border. Yes, something, it's the border. And the solution for them is, if only We can get the women's back under control so the men can be up on top. Oh, yes. But that's not strong either. That's not strong. Having to go and use society to repress women so that men could feel like they're superior again? No, that's not healthy. It's not a healthy relationship. It's everything that they're espousing is toxic. No, in reality, look, nowadays, anybody who's ever been in a really happy, successful marriage, myself, for example, we know it's a partnership. We know that you're supposed to support each other in all ways. And that's it. Now, finally, the one thing that I found dumb, probably the dumbest part about this, and what was just gratuitously thrown into this, I believe, is the comments about climate change. Wait, masculinity is, the left is blaming masculinity for climate change? What? What an absurd notion. It's got nothing to do with climate change. Masculinity and climate change are not related. But unfortunately, there's a lot of right-wingers who do believe that they do have something to do with this. Now, back in 2016, there was a business professor and his research team did a little study. It's a very, very small study, and I'm assuming that that's where this talking point comes from. It found that the concepts of greenness and femininity are cognitively linked, according to the abstract in the Journal of Consumer Research. Now, let's see. Stereotypical feminine behavior and attitudes are more in parallel with taking care of the environment, according to University of Notre Dame business professor James Wilkie, talking in an interview with the Washington Post. Male traits tend to conflict with this idea of maintaining a nice environment for other people. Weird. According to the Post, one survey of 127 students showed that the vast majority of both men and women perceived green products as feminine. In another survey, the vast majority of the 194 students identified a shopper with a reusable shopping bag as more eco-friendly and feminine, whilst identifying a shopper with a regular plastic bag as more wasteful and masculine. How is being more wasteful masculine? It doesn't make any sense at all to me. They live in a completely different world. It's topsy-turvy. Now, the thing about this is that this is a really small sample size. So to me, it feels like it's statistically irrelevant. But apparently, this study, and maybe some others that went along with similar results, were enough to convince the right wing that, if you care about the environment, then you're not a man. You should renounce your manhood. You just need to give up
testicles.
You just give them up. Give them up. It's surrender your tallywhacker. Okay? No. Get rid of it. You're not a man anymore. Apparently, not wanting to live in a filthy, polluted climate, change, disaster, post-apocalyptic, whatever, hellscape, not wanting to live into that situation is the same as cutting off your dick. I don't understand it. Like it's like carrying around a reusable bag, which, by the way, I shop at Aldi's. That's what they do. Everybody brings in a reusable bag. Totally fine. I'm pretty sure my dick hasn't fallen off yet. Still there, still firmly attached. I don't quite understand how being a good steward of the environment and the world, and by the way, making sure your kids and other people's kids have a livable planet is unmanly. I don't understand that. But again, these people, they don't make sense. They don't have to make sense. Logic does not apply anymore.